story time. It's probably been 2 weeks now, Steven, since
like a week.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we traveled, so maybe the days are getting away from me here, but I head out to I'm going out the front door. I'm heading down the street to get a little food in my belly. And as I walk by in the lobby there on the couch, there's a couple, was what it appears. I don't want to make too many assumptions, but it's a fucking couple, right? So
they were,
yeah, male and female, I might add. So, and then Steven sitting in the chair, sort of across. They were sitting on the couch together, and this was, kind of meet and greet, sort of in a consultation. That was clear to me. It was like all the signs, right? There's Steven's taking notes. They're actively engaged. There's a little dialogue. I could kind of see it coming. And I see dude there with his cell phone while the missus or whoever's sitting next to him, and he's scrolling through the cell phone, like intently looking at it, like searching while Steven's talking, which I think is fucking rude.
Mm-hmm.
But that's I already kind of saw, like, this doesn't look like it's going so great. And like Steven's looking at her and she's kind of looking like deer in the headlights. He asks a question. This all happens as I'm passing by in the lobby. He asks a question. She does not respond. And he doesn't respond for a second. Then he looks up from his phone and then he responds.
Oh, he responds for her.
That was my assumption. We're going to get to the bottom of this in a second. But again, my observation from outside just told me a few things, that things weren't going well. Then Steven and I had a conversation after this whole incident, and I want people to hear it because we stood around for maybe another 15 minutes, just kind of minds blown, but obvious and surprised, but not surprised at kind of what he had run into in that consultation, because it's happened to me similarly, kind of many times, just the general conversation. The fact that there was a couple involved and kind of this dynamic really was challenging. And so I'm already laughing about it because we were getting so fired up about it while we were talking. But maybe you can kind of talk to us about, over the gist of the situation and what this was. Because to me, it was a nutritional consultation.
Yeah, it was. So I guess I try to set the context a little bit. The female, she had inquired through our website. She was looking for some nutritional guidance. She had been on we'll call it a weight loss journey for a little while. Long story short, she had hit a plateau, wasn't sure, why she was plateauing. So she wanted to, get some advice. And as I was being told that this was being set up, by our front desk, I was told that her boyfriend more or less insisted on being there as well. And I was kind of like, okay, why is he insisting on being there? That doesn't usually bode well. But yeah, when we get to the actual conversation, they come in. I'm a little uncertain. Like, am I addressing you, the woman who is actually here for the advice, or the boyfriend? Because there was definitely periods where he was speaking for her. I was asking her a question, and I was kind of like, okay, bro, like you're there.
So I wasn't wrong.
He's answering for her. Like, she's looking at him like for almost like approval of, like, may I answer the question kind of thing. And then he just goes ahead and answers the question.
That is exactly what I watched happen. So he's confirming it. Like, I saw this walking by. I was like, oh, this shit.
I have lots of questions that I'll just keep my mouth shut for now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm kind of, I'm building my map here. I'm kind of getting to know a little bit more of the backstory. How did we arrive here? What's she been doing? What's been going on? Again, I'm kind of digging through things here, and I find out that she has lost some weight. She hit a plateau. Wasn't sure why. And then I'm finding out, okay, what have you been doing?
So can I'm going to set the time out for a second as we're getting into what she's been doing. So to paint the picture, this is not like when you're looking at these people sitting on the couch. I'm not saying they were fit individuals. I'm not saying they were fat individuals. I would say these were people that are just in general, they didn't look overly fat, overly fit, overly skinny.
And young as well, early 20s.
Yes. So that's the other part, was they were fairly
young. Is it a
young.
cultural thing as far as the dynamic between the two of them?
You know what? I always,
maybe,
you have to take that in mind. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like what I was watching there in terms of a potential cultural dynamic. I would say, this is my opinion, that was not what was going on here. This was just somebody's wearing the pants, and sometimes that can be either person. This person was wearing the pants, and the other person clearly lacked confidence. That's what I saw, sitting on the couch, not knowing what questions to ask, just looking for direction, or maybe, expecting some direction from the other person. So, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. So,
that was, it was her who was looking to make a change, but it was almost like he was the enforcer of this change. That that it was almost. Again, not to make assumptions here, but there was some expectations that he had that she was not meeting. And it was frustrating him, kind of like, why aren't you losing any more weight? When again, this was not someone who was obese by any stretch of the imagination. I
wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be very clear. Not that matters based on, or with regard to what you just said. How much that person weighs or doesn't weigh is of no consequence. I'm just saying, when you're looking at them, you're not going, oh, well, here's a fucking bodybuilder with a gal who, or with a woman who's clearly maybe never worked out a day in her life. She's having some weight issues, and there's this weird dynamic that we're looking at. It didn't look like that. So that's for context.
Yeah. So this whole vibe and energy was weird, but again, kind of long story short, what I end up deciphering after she's a combination of both of them answering my questions enough to understand what's been going on. It sounds like he's been kind of giving her the guidance, but this guidance is dog shit. She is eating, maybe she was saying 900 to 1,200 calories a day, somewhere in that range, maybe up to 1,500 on a, on when she's gorging herself or something like that. So she's eating very little. And then I get into, okay, well, what are your activity levels? She tells me that she does about 30 minutes of cardio. She actually had pretty good information, pretty clear information. I do 30 minutes of cardio. My heart rate is between 160 and 180, so fairly high intensity cardio for 30 minutes, followed by 30 to 45 minutes of weight training. So we'll call it an hour and 15 minutes of working out. And I'm like, okay, so how often are you doing that? Every day. Every day? Yeah, every day. I don't think I've taken a day off in 9 months.
What?
9 months.
My God. Less is more.
And it didn't, and she was
wasn't
like,
registered.
yeah, she was like, what? Like, what? Yeah, no, I haven't. I work out every single day.
By the way, if I can remember correctly, just you just mentioned some things like how many calories she was eating, and then how many calories she was burning. She was wearing like 1 or 2 devices.
She had a Whoop.
Okay, so she's wearing a Whoop. So she's tracking this stuff. Like she's analytical as fuck, is what I understood after all of this.
Yeah. So the data that I was getting, it was pretty clear data. Now, so I saw that she was wearing the Whoop, and I was like, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about, like, tell me what your Whoop data is telling you. Well, first I asked, after we found out that you're not eating and you're working out every single fucking day, tell me about your sleep. How much are you sleeping? Like 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. I'm like, oh. Huh. All right. Can you tell me what your Whoop data is telling you? What's your feedback from your wearable?
Like recovery?
You? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you're familiar with the data that you get from a Whoop band, it basically gives you your day strain, how much strain you're under, which is based on your heart rate variability. It also will give you an idea of your recovery. And obviously, there's red, there's yellow, there's green. Green is good, red is bad.
Wait, one more time. Green is good, red is
bad.
Oh, it's bad. Okay.
Red is bad.
Just clarifying.
And
I don't
so
know
I
those
asked
things.
her, because I use one myself and I'm very familiar with the data. What's your recovery been looking like? And she's like, oh, it's actually, it was almost like she had never even thought about it. She was like, it's actually red and maybe sometimes yellow, but it's red a lot. I'm like,
oh my God.
It's red a lot, huh?
Weird.
It's almost like it's telling you something.
So weird.
And then, we get even deeper into it, as I'm kind of like, let's look at this a little bit closer. And she's like, yeah. And my heart rate variability just, it keeps dropping, and my resting heart rate keeps increasing. I'm like, huh.
Weird.
That's weird. It's almost like your body is begging for mercy.
Right?
And yeah, so I mean, I'm, I once I get this information, I'm like, okay, you want to know why you're plateauing?
Let's talk about why you're not losing
Yeah,
fat.
let's talk about why you seem to have hit a wall. You're dying.
Yeah, more or
Slow
less.
death.
You are
A slow, miserable death. That sounds awful.
You are not eating.
Totally
you're
awful.
not sleeping, and you're overtraining.
Constant recovery
to
debt.
the max.
Right.
Yeah, your recovery debt is like the U.S. deficit. It's terrible. It's and this was like I hadn't even considered this. And now we bring in boyfriend.
Dude.
So we bring in dude.
The savior.
So we find out, he tells me a little bit about himself, that he's been studying nutrition. He is a pre-med student. So, this guy's, I don't know, 22.
Still in his undergrad.
Yeah, he's still in undergrad. He's going to be telling me he's graduating soon. And he's just he's like, oh yeah, well, it sounded like I had her go to the doctor. We checked for PCOS. We checked for thyroid issues. He's very quickly, I determined, okay, he is looking for pathology. He's looking for a disease.
Because he's already decided.
Yeah, there's no way she's working out this much and eating this little and not losing weight. There's no way that this could be happening. I go into metabolic adaptation, and he continues to question me, but how much could you really adapt? How much could that really be affecting things? Are you sure there's not anything else going on here? I'm like, yep.
This is about the time I walked back through the door. That it was tense. Let's just put it that way. Like Steven was really having to keep his shit together from a distance, like just being very patient with this dude. Because I was standing behind the desk for a little bit, which isn't far from this couch that they were sitting on. This motherfucker was condescending as hell. Like he was sure he was right about something, and so that this line of questioning came to, I need you to validate what I've already decided to be my truth in this whole thing. And that fucking answer wasn't coming out of Steven's mouth. It wasn't gonna come out of Steven's mouth. And he was just digging. Like, and he was, to me, from a distance, was getting visibly frustrated. But holding his shit together. It wasn't like this was let's just say there was tension. It wasn't like it
wasn't a confrontation.
It wasn't a confrontation, but it was getting awkward.
Yeah, it got to the point where I was like, dude, I don't know how else to explain this to you. I've said it like 5 times now. Your girlfriend is not sleeping, she's not eating, and she's working out every single day. That is what is happening here. That is why she is not losing any weight, because her body is absolutely in like fight or flight emergency mode. I brought up, okay, you've been getting testing done. Have you taken a look at cortisol levels? Have you taken a look at maybe some of these other, potential, if that's what you need, if you need some sort of medical validation or intervention, have you looked at those things? And again, he's like, well, yeah, I have cortisol. I've heard of it. But does that really affect weight loss much? Does that really affect? And I'm like, yes, it does.
Yeah, and not only does it's you're looking at this bigger picture. It's Mr. Smart Guy again, like
pre-med. He's
pre-med.
Very, very
he knows it all
yeah.
at this point for sure. His dad's probably a doctor too, or whatever. So that's probably part of this or whatever. I don't know. You're making too many assumptions, but yeah, cortisol is a thing. It's a thing, and if you had, in terms of running tests or whatever, I would have sure liked to see some of that blood work, because PCOS or not, I guarantee you that hormone panel at this point for that young lady is fucked.
Oh yeah.
However, it's not flagging outside of what would be considered, in, let's just say, mainstream medical care.
And that actually did come up, because he had mentioned, I also, again, I took her to a dietitian who said, oh no, everything seems fine. Everything seems normal. Like, huh.
Yeah, it's clearly normal. So we wouldn't be here if it was normal. So again, now he's looking for that last straw. There's got to be something else. So he's coming to you, but you're not giving him the right answers or validating his shit. So where's the kicker? The kicker in this is is the request for like, well, maybe there is an answer, or I don't know how you posed this or whatever to the guy, but there was a this is where I think I just laughed out loud. At the time, I was a little frustrated for Steven. But but I laughed out loud because he asked about supplementation. Yeah,
Oh,
so
God.
he gets into the fucking fat burner conversation, right? So now we're talking about like, what can we add on to the pile to potentially get her to lose a few more pounds because they're clearly not. She, who knows? Because I mean, how many words did she say the entire time you guys were sitting there?
I mean, yeah, I think she spoke a little bit when it almost was like that he like co-signed that it was her turn. Or then she was,
Jesus.
so yeah, that was a little weird. There was times when I was looking directly at her, asking her the question. She looks at him. I'm not talking to him.
Yeah,
I'm talking
wow.
to you.
I think so. I wanted to bring that story back up because Cece hadn't heard it, and it lays groundwork and context for this conversation we're about to get into. I want to talk about, Steve and I were talking about like this whole fat burner thing and some of the things that he's been doing lately on our social media specific to supplementation on What's Up Wednesdays. The fat burner conversation comes up in this because this is that next reach for desperation move for people that wind up in this situation. Now, we're laughing about it. I've dropped a few F-bombs about it. We're having a good time talking about it. And I want to be clear, like I have compassion for people that are really struggling, but you have to understand, like, if you're not in, we sit here and we try and our job is to try and help people find solutions to their problems, help them find solutions, not us find the solution. And when you're providing, you're trying to give a pathway or at least some breadcrumbs, and there's just a complete resistance to that, and you're literally starving. It's just weird. And sometimes we have to step back and be, and laugh a little bit. There has to be a little comedy in this. So I just want to put that out there that I'm not a total dick most of the time, and neither is Steven for that matter. But the point of this is like walking away from that. Sometimes you just got to throw your hands up and go. There is, until that person hits a major rock bottom point, which clearly they aren't at yet, because they're going to have to disconnect from the person that may or may not be holding them back. I think that's a lesson in this. Secondly, you need to disconnect yourself from people that are signing off on your bullshit or providing you bullshit to write on. That can be a problem. And Google fooing your way into, a self-diagnosis or a belief system that is not rooted in a lot of logic and or foundation. So, should you expect anybody that sits on that couch to understand all the things that you said at a very deep level? No, but if you're going to take claim to, well, this is what I'm studying in nutrition or whatever, here's a tip for you. If you want to learn about the things that you just said and the details there, don't go to school for nutrition. And don't fucking ask your doctor about them either. That's just my personal advice, because I don't think you're going to get any of the answers that you could get by working with people that work in dietetics, but work with people on a regular basis and are not confined by the modern medical healthcare system in order to provide treatment and advice and modalities for helping them out. So again, the thing that really struck me about this was just how resistant they were to being helped. Or more
It's funny
specifically,
too, because they're the ones that reached out to asking for help.
yeah, I mean, call it funny or just call it retarded. I mean, it's just like, come on, man, where are you with this? Like, you want help or not? Like, if you've already decided, why are we here? And I think that, like a lot of people can relate to this type of conversation, maybe not the specific one or on the story that we're sharing here, but that type of conversation where it's just like, how much harder do I have to hit you in the head, or how many more times do you have to keep going down this road before you wake up, right? And make a change, right? So you have to be ready for that. And this is the sad part on it for me is I don't think they would be there unless both of them felt some serious concern here. So we put a lot on this dude. Yes, there were some assumptions made, but this girl could clearly speak, right? She had her own thoughts. She's a human being, and there was some resistance there to sharing that. I mean,
it seemed like when I was explaining what was happening, she was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," and he was the one who continued to pursue. But no. But what else could it be?
Right?
Okay, well, maybe we'll think about that. But what disease does she have?
So whether that's the person sitting next to you in your life that's doing that to you, or it's that little voice in your head, that rather than sit back and or take a couple of steps back in a deep breath and maybe examine it at a different level, the choice is being made to, okay, well, let's reach for the next thing. And the next thing may be in a supplement, like a fat burning supplement, to help this person lose body fat in the current condition that they're in. I want to talk about this because this story, like while it's unique to these people, is not uncommon. And anybody that does this job can relate to this. And anybody out there that's really been challenged in the ways that these people or this particular individual is being challenged, the other guy's clearly being challenged in his own ways too. but they can relate to this too, I think. And like, it doesn't matter what I try, like I still can't seem to lose weight. Like, doesn't matter how low I take my calories, how hard I exercise, how much cardio I do, you know, all those kind of things. It's just not working for me. And then rather than go back to the fundamentals, right? Getting sleep, eating the right amount of calories, getting adequate micro and macronutrients, all the things that we talk about all the time, stress and sleep management, and then managing your exercise appropriately. It's not give me a pill. There's got to be something. So fat burners have been a topic of conversation, and like when we talk about fat burners, we're talking about a very, very specific like group of supplements. So
category.
Yeah, categories. So let's get into them because I hear less about them. Like people don't really come to me, but I'm not really in like that, I don't know, that physique world anymore, or where people are just like constantly like, I got to have abs, I got to be lean, you know.
That's a good point. You know, I haven't come across anybody either that's been into those. I mean, we had one client at one point that was
She's wrecked
using them.
herself.
Yeah,
Wrecked
and she was
herself.
having a lot of other like gut microbiome issues and things as well. But since her, that's been a few years.
Yeah. So I don't know, Stephen, let's talk about fat burners. And then let's talk about some of the things around fat burners within that category that are maybe part of like an ingredient or a component of. And then let's talk about how to help people get their head around, look, like if I'm trying to supplement to be more effective or efficient at fat loss, fat metabolism, let's just put it that way. What are the things I may or may not be or should or shouldn't do as it relates to supplements? Like we talk about diet a lot, but this fat burning supplement, can we talk about them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it came to my mind why I brought it up, on WhatsApp Wednesday recently was because the weather here in California, it's finally getting a little bit warmer. As the weather gets warmer, all of a sudden everybody has, summer body weight loss on their mind. They start removing some clothing they haven't removed in quite a while, and realizing, maybe the winter didn't, maybe I got a little more fluffy than I had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes to front of mind around this time of year. Pardon me. And as you mentioned, everybody, they can get to that point where they're like, what else can I do? In the case of the person that we were discussing earlier, I mean, she was already redlining her body, and to redline it even more would be like catastrophic. But when it comes to fat burners, I think it comes up for a lot of people. I mean, I think both men and women, but I almost feel like I hear about it more with women, as far as, can this help me? Should I use this? And I think a good amount of people do have the right idea as far as this really isn't what my priority should be. There really isn't. There's always some new magic weight loss supplement coming out.
But they're still looking for an edge.
Yeah. And I think, I guess just to maybe talk about, the category, what it entails really. I mean, a lot of times they're stimulant-based products, so they're caffeinated, they contain some type of plant-based alkaloid, that are really akin to amphetamines.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to probably contain some type of thermogenic ingredient, so something that's going to increase the body's temperature. And then they may include something that has some type of diuretic effect. So a fat burner, supplement that you may get, off the shelf at GNC, at Vitamin Shop, at wherever you're going. It may increase your energy, it may increase your focus, curb your appetite, because stimulants tend to curb your appetite. It might, increase thermogenesis, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Some people are really into that, like, I need to sweat, I need to be like drenched, or it wasn't a good workout. And there are ingredients in some fat burners that will make you sweat like hell.
This is so funny. I'm listening to you talk about this and I'm going, like, if people listen to the first part of that, like all the cons, for me, I'm just like, God, that sounds miserable. That sounds horrible. Right. And then you get into the pros and you're like, oh, fuck all that. Like, that's fine. Like, we're going to burn more calories. Like, I'm going to sweat more. I'm going to have more energy. I'm potentially burning more fat. Well, I can suffer. Like, I'll just suffer a little bit more. Like, it's funny how the mindset can go, oh, maybe it's not so bad. Like, you're weighing the pros and the cons here. And so people listening to this would be like, like I've got some, I got all this little extra fluff. Like, I can suffer for a little while if that's what's going to make me do. What's the reality of these things, man?
Well, I mean, the reality is that if you're trying to lose that last stubborn 40 pounds, this is not where you should be.
Splitting hairs, man.
This is really not where your focus should be, because the difference that it may make is minimal.
Yep.
And that's, as much as I talk about supplements, I always am leading with supplements are not going to save you. And I think most people, at least theoretically in my mind, I think that people understand that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But at the same time, there is that peak of curiosity that happens. Like, well, maybe
it's only $29.99.
I was saying peak of curiosity, or they're looking for the quicker fix.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's both. It's like, it's not really an investment. It's, it's $30, right, for a bottle of pills. It's $1 a day, right? I take a pill or a capsule a day, and I mean, I'm already taking some capsules, so I might as well throw this in there. Again, you're weighing the pros and the cons. All right, when you look at the label, it says could cause diarrhea, could cause gastric bloating, could cause headaches, could cause nausea.
Dizziness,
literally, that's what's going to be on the bottle, right? But on the front side of the bottle, it says
rapid shred.
Yeah, rapid shred.
AF.
Yeah. It's like turbo shred, right? And so there's this complete dichotomy of what it can do versus what it probably actually will do. And then there's the reality of it, right? So the reality of it is like you're saying, like, if you've got a lot of weight to lose, and again, that's relative to whoever we're talking about here. Like, this is not a big rock. Like, this is such a small thing that might, and I use might with an emphasis, might help you a little bit. And so I get it. Like, well, you said might. So if there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah. So you're saying the immortal words of the guys from Dumb and Dumber. You're saying there's a chance that I'm going to do it. Okay. But if there was a chance that you making sure that you tracked your calories for 3 days could help you lose 5 times the amount that thing would do, would there be a chance that you could track your calories for me for 3 days? Oh, fuck no. That's annoying. Like, that's there's no way. That's so unhealthy. So unhealthy, like, to be obsessed with food like that, where I would track my calories. Again, this is this mindset. So I'm going back to this couple sitting on the couch just going, it's really messed up. So again, I don't think the supplements themselves are messed up. I just think there's a mindset there, and there's a thought process that is so messed up. It makes it very easy for people to do this. And when you're scrolling through and you see that person, on your social media that represents the physique that you want to have, and you're feeling miserable about yourself, and you haven't been able to lose those poundages or whatever, and then you look up there and there's a link in the bio with a discount code. And within 3 seconds, I can have that, let's call it 10. 10 seconds, I can click that link in the bio. I can have that shit in my shopping cart, right? That supplement that person is repping out there, and I can have it on the way to my house. That makes it even a little bit more slippery for that person that's in a tough situation. So fat burners, and you mentioned the term thermogenesis. There's just 2 different things here. I think it's important we bring that up. Like, what's a thermogenic versus what are fat burning components versus what are thermogenic components? So we've seen these things be used the same, but they're actually a little bit different. Maybe we just kind of define that a little bit.
Yeah, not to get too deep into the weeds about it. Fat burning could refer to fat oxidation or lipolysis. So that's actually fat being utilized for energy. Fat being utilized, fat being put to work, body fat being put to work.
It's real simply like you got fat cells. You have to break the fat down into free fatty acids. That has to cross the membrane, the cell membrane. It has to get into the bloodstream. Then it has to be bonded with protein, right? And then it has to be taken to the liver, right? The muscles or the kidneys to be metabolized, right? And that's basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to have this process happen, right? And part of that process has components that people are putting in these supplements to theoretically help that process along, right? But that's what we're trying to do with when we say go through the process of lipolysis. That's very fat metabolism. That's in a very, very simple way of looking at it. That's what has to happen. It has to get from one place to another, and there are things that have to happen with it along the way. One of the things with getting it from one place to the other is making sure you're doing the right things from an exercise and a dietary perspective just to get the process started in the right direction. Then there's all the other things that happen along the way. So, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there and cut you off, but to give the layman's process
in context to
the context, that's what it has to happen. So it's not put supplement in, fat gets burned.
Yeah,
there's a setup process. The proverbial table has to be set for this to work properly.
And then that's why when it comes to supplements and lipolysis, most supplements are not doing that.
Right.
They might be facilitating that process in some fashion, but as you said, there's not put pill in mouth, fat falls off body. But then when we talk about thermogenesis, which is real, and there are supplements that can definitely increase thermogenesis, it's just your body's production of heat. And when your body is producing more heat, you may be burning calories more efficiently. Your caloric expenditure may increase slightly. Very, we're talking moderate. So when someone is, they love to just be drenched in sweat after a workout, all you're doing other than getting dehydrated is you may be burning calories a little bit more efficiently. Your caloric expenditure may be increased slightly.
Right.
So what a fat burner might actually do in a perfect world is essentially, again, we're talking about facilitation of losing fat, just help you get into a caloric deficit. Could you imagine that a caloric deficit is really what we're after?
However, and so you can see, like for the individual we were talking about the subject we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast, like this person does not need to be in more of a deficit.
No.
So increasing thermogenesis is not going to be helpful for her. It's going to exacerbate her borderline condition. Like, I'm not a doctor, but I bet we are borderline conditions. And I would say, like, to overview it, it's condition red at this point. I mean, as you put it, like, your girlfriend's dying, dude. Yeah. Like, she's literally on life support.
You can't push it any further than this. Yeah.
You're redlining, right? Yeah. So I guess that's just kind of looking at thermogenesis or thermogenics, and fat burning supplements. They can be a little bit confusing, but generally speaking, now what you see is a lot of compounding of it all. So it's kind of all got it in there. Yeah. And in the past, like, stuff would get on the shelf, and like the FDA would get a hold of it, and like, there's literally meth in this, so we have to pull this down, or the precursors to meth at such a level that it would treat your body very much the same as using like an illicit drug. And so there was some level of regulation on that for a while, and it got a little ugly. And by the same time, they became very popular. So I think in general, consumers got a little bit more savvy about them. Like, this is probably not a good thing. Like, and I know somebody that's taken these and that didn't treat them well, and their stories got shared, and so people have kind of stayed away from it. But then the consumer got smarter, and so did the supplements companies, and they're like, okay, well, we won't sell it as this. What we'll start to do is maybe break it out into its constituent parts, right? And let people kind of do their thing, or make claims on bottles, right? Or labels that say, well, we have this component, which you used to see as a major component in your fat burning supplement if you were taking one of those before, in your fat burner, and one of those is L-Carnitine. And so, which I think has way more research behind it, but that's one of these things that comes up. And so let's talk about L-Carnitine.
Okay. Yeah. L-carnitine, I would say, is more of an innocuous ingredient versus some of the other things that you might find in fat burners that are really, like I mentioned, plant-based, plant-derived alkaloids that are similar to amphetamines in the way that they function. And just a quick aside, because they are akin to amphetamines, part of the allure to at least initially taking some of these fat burning products is they elicit a feeling of euphoria, very similar to what a stimulant, illicit drug will elicit.
I wouldn't know anything about
you'll
that.
feel.
I don't know nothing about that.
Yeah, so you feel really good.
Mhm.
Wow, I feel awesome. I have great focus. I have great energy.
For
yada,
now.
yada. Yeah. Until you kind of hit the wall there. But that's just a brief aside. So L-carnitine is naturally occurring. Your body can produce it naturally via the amino acids lysine and methionine. So a couple of your essential amino acids that you are going to get from any complete protein source.
Yeah.
So
if you're taking whey protein, you're eating plenty of eggs, fish, beef.
meat, you're getting some L-carnitine in your system. And as far as
you said any complete protein, so
eggs, fish.
So not necessarily
beef.
Like you're plant-based.
Not necessarily, but if you are getting the combination of amino acids required
from your plants,
if you're mixing and matching amino acids, but the likelihood if you are consuming animal protein, you have no sort of deficiency of L-carnitine happening, and the basis for it being a fat burning, quote unquote, fat burning supplement is that it helps transport fatty acids into cells. So talking about, what you had mentioned earlier, how I would explain it to people was this, this product is designed at least or purports to put your stored body fat to use for energy. That's, it's that's all stored body fat really is just stored energy. This sort of helps unlock it, if you would.
Yeah, so carnitine is part of that lipolysis, right? So when we mentioned this is what has to happen. It has to go from a free fatty acid, it has to bond to a protein, then it has to be carried. Once in that process, carnitine is part of that process. And so the theory is by supplementing with L-carnitine, the amino acid L-carnitine, you'll have this stuff in your system, right? And or more of it, similar to like creatine, right? And you can get it from your diet. And your body will produce it to some extent. Again, we talked about, if you're dieting this way, if you're underfed already, you're likely going to be
deficient.
You could be deficient in it, right? If you're, if you're not meeting your protein needs, maybe you got plenty of food coming on board, right? Or energy coming on board, but you're not meeting your protein needs. That could be an issue for you. The types of proteins you eat, could be an issue in this case. So things to think about. The idea is that you just to have your stores at a level that puts you at the highest level of highest propensity, or I'm challenged by this word sometimes, but optimization. You're optimized to do the best you can with those fatty acids once they hit that bloodstream to do the things that you want them to do. That being, you burning the stored body fat, turning it into a usable free fatty acid, and then getting it to the places that it needs to go. Mitochondria, again, liver, muscles. Those are the places that you want this energy to be. So, again, it's not a miracle supplement, and it's not even a miracle drug. However, I think it was back in the 50s, early 50s, L-carnitine is part of the B vitamin complex, and it was carnitine is, and it was I think originally labeled as vitamin BT. So it was part of the thing. So it has a little bit of history there from a medical perspective. And I think a lot of this, so going back to this lipolysis and the utilization of free fatty acids or fatty acids within the system and exchange and turning it into that energy exchange, excuse me, there's some research that shows it can help you with your cholesterol levels, right? It can help, because we're more efficient potentially at burning these things up or utilizing these things that are in our bloodstream, it can contribute to heart health in a few different ways. One would be increasing circulation or vascular circulation around the heart. There's a little bit of research there, and then obviously again going back to the blood lipids and the things that are in there. Obviously, we have a problem with that in our country, and cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis and all those things. It has shown benefit there. A few other things that interestingly that came up, in my kind of going back and researching it, that for men, it can actually promote sperm count and sperm motility.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, right.
Say no more.
So dudes, get on the game.
I got you, fam.
If you're, if you're on that path in life. Otherwise, maybe don't take too much, right? But yeah. So again, like I just said it. There's healthy lipid levels. There's reproductive health implications there. You mentioned like that feeling of euphoria, that you get from using some of these other supplements. It has been reported to sort of increase that sense of well-being. But again, you were mentioning back with these fat burners, or from an appetite suppression perspective, it can be helpful for when you're taking those. Well, L-carnitine is part of that process. So that when supplementing, it's been shown to help there. I think if you're thinking about this, if you're like a performance athlete and trying to stay fit for action, as we always say here, and whatever it is that you're doing, or just trying to perform on a regular basis physically, you can imagine if those things are happening well, like it has been directly related to impacts in increased, athletic performance, specifically on the endurance side of things, but also on the strength building side of things. So just think about that, your body working more, efficiently and, functioning at a quote unquote optimized level, you would feel better, right? Your heart's going to be healthier, right? You're going to recover faster. You're going to, have more energy during your workouts. And because you have more energy during your workouts, then you could be pushing a little bit harder, or at least you're a little bit more enthusiastic or more motivated. You may do that extra rep or two, push a little harder to that upper threshold when you're doing that HIIT training on the treadmill or whatever the hell. And that can be promote that fat loss, right? If you're set up correctly.
With all of that too, then it would impact your mood, right? Positively impact your mood.
I think the downstream effects of just being healthier obviously are massive.
Yeah, right? And then they end up being attributed to the supplement when,
that's my point.
Yeah. And so that's actually probably the best outcome when it comes to a supplement, is that it might be, slightly facilitating all of the things that you just mentioned. And in carnitine, I would say is it falls into that category, that it can be helpful. There's no miracle, but it can be helpful. There's also the acetyl version, acetyl L-carnitine.
Right.
I actually found more research supporting the brain health benefits, and it's something that I've used myself. And that could also be attributed to improving your mood, because you're thinking more clearly.
Right. 1,000%. You're bringing back in, so we've talked about this, like the gut, brain, liver triad, and the connection, how all those people, or all those things connect up. Look, giving all the credit to one supplement just doesn't make any sense. When we're recommending supplements, and Steven's got Steven's written a very good guide to supplementation that we'll make available here fairly quickly. We're putting some final touches on it right now, and some recommendations for the supplements that he and Red Dot Fitness really like, from a quality perspective, also from a dosage perspective, and those kind of things. So just a little teaser on that will be coming out soon. It'll be made available to everybody. But in thinking about that, and when we're doing that, these are things that you can add in when you have the other bigger rocks in place. So putting all of this credit into, I take L-carnitine and I've lost, 30 pounds. No, you didn't lose that because of L-carnitine. There were other factors at play. There always are. So, people kind of hanging on to it. But going back to the point with the supplement guide, and look, if you're going to take stuff, here's our recommendations on what to take. More importantly, here's why. And let's be realistic about what those outcomes, and expectations should be. with regard to what specifically you're doing as it relates, or taking as it relates specifically to what you're doing and your goals. So, L-carnitine is one of those ones that's on the list, but it's probably more on the list in the way of just keeping your amino acid profile, optimal throughout the day. I can't remember where we were with the aminos in the guide right now, but maybe you could speak to that. I think L-carnitine is an amino that's it's gonna come in your protein powders. Inherently, it's in there, right? It's going to come in your amino acid supplement that you may be trying to do pre or intra or post workout,
or at least the precursors for L-carnitine is there. Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like touching on the guide, there is a section as far as individual amino acids that are sometimes supplemented by themselves versus your BCAAs or EAA blends that most people are fairly familiar with.
Yeah, I think there's another thing to look at this here. And anytime you're talking about putting anything in your system, whether it be a food, a supplement, or whatever else, like what are the things that we need to watch out for? I think the cool thing about L-carnitine is it's
very little risk of side effects.
You mentioned it's innocuous. Yeah, I mean, unless you're taking massive mega doses, I don't know that anybody's ever done that or should even worry about that. There's not a lot you should worry about. Pregnancy is always the caveat, right? And if you've got some other metabolic disorder or whatever, that's certainly could be a risk factor. Talk to your doctor. But at the same time, like most generally healthy individuals can get on, can be using L-carnitine as an aid for all the things that we talked about. Fat loss is usually the one that just gets highlighted all the time because most people are looking to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as far as me personally, my personal experience with it, like I said, I've taken the acetyl L-carnitine form for brain health and cognitive function, and I have noticed in the past using L-carnitine tartrate, which is another common supplemental form, reduced soreness, which again, you may not be even attributing that to some L-carnitine that you're taking for weight loss or fat loss,
right?
But it is helping you get back into the gym faster, work out harder, and you may not even be thinking that it's the L-carnitine, but that was something that I noticed in the past that I was like, wow, I'm not as sore as I was expecting to be after that workout.
That was an ingredient in a blend of something that you were consuming?
It was an L-carnitine product that had a few different forms of L-carnitine in it, but that was something, at least anecdotally that I noticed, after a really hard workout, I was expecting to be, ripped up the next day, and I was not. And I was like, what did I change? What was the only thing that I changed?
Do they still do this stuff in liquid form?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't. It's L-carnitine's always included, and it's been in a capsule for me for a long time. It's included in another supplement that I take. I'm like, okay, I know I need to get a little extra L-carnitine, so it's in this formulation that I use. And that'll be in the guide actually. That recommendation will be in the guide. Won't give it away today, but you guys can check it out there. But the point of that is I remember, early on in my supplementation days, when I was really just getting on my journey, it used to come, was a big container.
16-ounce bottle.
Yeah, and you would add a tablespoon or a teaspoon or whatever thing is a teaspoon to, your protein shake or your, whatever. It was in liquid form, so it was easily kind of gotten into the system.
Yeah,
so
it's a little easier to get a higher dose in a liquid form, with anything really, liquid or powder form versus taking, a fistful of capsules.
How much should people be taking? What's the general recommendation now? Like, what are we looking at here?
I would typically recommend between 3,000 and 4,500 milligrams if you're trying to take it for sports performance, and it kind of depends on the form that you're taking as well. That would be just L-carnitine, just basic L-carnitine. The dosage might be a little bit different for L-carnitine tartrate. That one is a little more bioavailable. It absorbs a little bit better. And then acetyl L-carnitine, the one that's primarily for brain function, that would be 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams. If you took 3,000 milligrams, you would get a gnarly headache. But yeah, as far as the liquid version that people are primarily taking for weight loss, 3,000 to 4,500 milligrams. If you get much higher than that, you're probably going to get the brakes are gonna hit with diarrhea before you.
Yeah, I mean, gut issues are an issue anytime you're taking too much of any particular supplement.
Disaster pants. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing you want to be careful is you're hearing these numbers like, whoa, 35 and 4,500 milligrams. That sounds like a massive dosage of stuff. Think about this. It's in a lot of the things you're already probably taking, right? So again, if you're using an amino supplement, it's probably in there, right? If you're using protein powder, it's probably it's definitely in there.
It's in the greens too, isn't it?
Not L-Carb, but it's in, I mean, I don't know, like the people may be familiar with like the Ghost energy drinks that are very popular right now. Yeah. It's in there. And the constituent amino acids, the lysine and the methionine, that's going to be in any EAA product, in your protein powder, in your steak. Those are going to be there.
So you're eating it. You're probably consuming it. If you're doing a really good job with your diet and you're taking some supplements and you're really trying to perform at your best and also, get the best or the most, like optimal results that you can get doing what you're doing, you're already onboarding this stuff somewhere. So in terms of the dosages and what you're doing, start easy and work your way up as with anything else. But I don't know. Do we miss anything on fat burners or L-Carnitine? I don't want to have the fat burner conversation again. So, but I just wanted to again, the story at the beginning was like, God damn, we're still talking about fat burners in these situations. Okay, let's talk about it. And then what are the things that we like, within those? Again, L-Carnitine is one of those things that I think has a lot of promise, but it is backed with a good deal of research, and it is inexpensive. It's easy to find. It would be about, for most people, just getting a little bit extra into what they're already doing. It wouldn't be like you have to change your lifestyle and your complete supplementation program in order to get it in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, to tie a bow on it, where I have seen it be, an effective, add-on is with physique competitors, figure competitors, bodybuilders, people who are really just trying to get down to that, get those last couple pounds,
that minute that have to be on stage.
People who are already dialed in with diet, who are already dialed in with their exercise program, and same
lifestyle.
thing, and same thing with the fat burners. It might be able to just tip you into that caloric deficit that you need to be in, especially if it's a stimulant fat burner, someone who is already well trained. It's not going to have any sort of cardiovascular side effects, where someone who is, significantly obese, I don't recommend you taking some type of high stimulant fat burner. It's not where your mind should be.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah. But someone who is already cardiovascularly trained and can take on maybe a little extra strain in that regard could have some beneficial application. But again, it's very much, let's get first things first.
Yeah. If you got your house in order, maybe add a little carnitine into your life.
Makes sense.
Yeah.